Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So this is a follow-up to my series of videos about this beef between Pusha T and Drake. My last video was about a song that Pusha T put out, and for that particular diss song, he used cover art, a picture of Drake with blackface on it. And when I first saw that picture, I assumed that it was photoshopped, like a joke or whatever. But it turns out that that's an actual picture of Drake wearing blackface. So because of that, a lot of people have been asking Drake to basically explain himself. People in my comment section said Drake has a lot of explaining to do, and obviously he does, because here you have a biracial man in blackface. And we know about the long history of blackface, what it means. It was designed to demean and degrade black people, to make black people look like a race of buffoons and savages. So he has some explaining to do. And this morning I found out that he put out a statement on Instagram explaining his position and why he did that blackface photograph back in 2007. And from what I understand, this was at a time when he was still acting and he was not a rap artist yet. He hadn't got on the scene real big yet. So I'm going to read some excerpts from his statement, and then I'm going to provide further commentary. So this is what he said. He said, "I know everybody is enjoying the circus, but I want to clarify this image in question. This was not from a clothing brand shoot or my musical career. This picture is from 2007, a time in my life where I was an actor and I was working on a project that was about young actors, young black actors struggling to get roles, being stereotyped and typecast. The photos represent how African Americans were once wrongfully portrayed in entertainment. Me and my best friend at the time, who was also an actor from Sudan, were attempting to use our voice to bring awareness to issues we dealt with all the time as black actors at auditions." Now, that's his explanation. And I want to hear from you. Do you buy that explanation? Do you agree with that explanation? So I want to hear from y'all. What do y'all think about it? But this is what I have to say. The first thing I'll say is this. I want to hear from that other person who was his quote unquote best friend at the time. Because I think that that person would have more legitimacy than Drake at this time, especially since Drake is in a defensive posture. And I was watching this video this morning, and they were just talking about how this forced Drake to respond in a way that he's not typically responding, where he has to explain himself. He had no choice but to explain himself because this is a very offensive photograph, you know. And I could understand if somebody was doing blackface, for instance, like if somebody came up with a photograph, for instance, of that guy Savion Glover and the other brother from In Living Color when they did that Spike Lee movie, Bamboozled. Like if somebody just out of nowhere just came up with a photograph and said, "Why is this guy wearing blackface?" If they understood, the purpose of Bamboozled and this and that, they would understand why he was wearing blackface, and they wouldn't, condemn a Savion Glover or that other brother. I can't, Tommy Davidson, that's his name. Yeah, Tommy Davidson. They would say, well, I understand why they had blackface, given the fact that they were in this movie that Spike Lee did. So that's one of the rare exceptions, one of the rare cases where you could actually explain why these people had blackface on without being outraged. So I really want to hear from this other person that Drake references. That's who needs to be interviewed. That's the person that that guy Vlad TV needs to search out and get an interview with to find out, if this is a legitimate explanation, if it's legit or not. So that's one thing. And another thing is this, man. It kind of reminds me of Jay-Z when Jay-Z dissed Prodigy. During the Summer Jam, like back in the day. I don't know if they still do this at Hot 97, but they used to have Summer Jam. That's a summer concert where they had the hottest artists of the summer performing for the people. And during one of those performances, Jay-Z took out this picture of Prodigy. And Prodigy is the the main rapper from Mobb Deep. He passed away, not too long ago. But, he has this gangster persona and all that kind of stuff. His rhymes are about street life and drug dealing and killing and all this and that. But Jay-Z pulled out this picture of him as a ballerina. Well, not quite a ballerina, but that's the terminology that Jay-Z used. He was a dancer, he was into ballet and this and that. I'm talking about Prodigy. So Jay-Z pulled out these pictures of Prodigy as a kid doing ballet and stuff like that. And that's like completely contrary to this image that the Prodigy put out there, this thugged out image, this masculine image, this intimidating image. But here he is in a photograph from back in the day, as a dancer, a ballet dancer. And in the words of Jay-Z, he was like, "You were a ballerina. I got the pictures. I seen you." So, I mean, that kind of this whole situation with Drake reminds me of that, like coming up with this picture, because nobody had seen this picture that I'm aware of. Like, this wasn't on the radar screen for anybody. And Pusha T kind of alludes to this on his first diss track, Infrared, or was it? Yeah, I think Infrared. That's his first diss track. On there, he talks about people dressing up, basically, playing the Sambo role or the Mammy role and this and that. And I didn't really realize exactly what he was talking about, but he was talking about that image, and then he used that image for his cover art. So I really think that Drake probably needs to do an actual interview about this, man. I don't think a quick little statement on Instagram is good enough. I mean, especially, given the fact that this is a biracial man, somebody that's light skinned, basically making mockery of darker skinned black people, of black people, period. And black people are this man's fan base. I mean, black people are the ones that got this guy started. He signed to a black label, Young Money. The people that promoted his career are black people. I mean, one of the people that really helped get him on is Lil Wayne, a dark skinned black man. So he really needs to explain this further, do more interviews explaining his position on this. And this puts him in a losing type of posture when it comes to this rap beef thing, because instead of just going ham on Pusha T, he's being forced to explain himself. And rightfully so. He should explain himself, given the history of blackface in this country, given the history of colorism in this country, given the whole legacy of racism tied to that, and this whole issue of this guy basically, presenting this image, this negative image of black people in a profession that in many ways is like a minstrel show. So this man has a lot of explaining to do. And in a lot of ways, this is no different from, for instance, these people doing Halloween every year. You had these white people wearing this blackface and stuff like that, making mockery of black people. So I want to hear more from Drake, and I want to see what kind of response he's actually going to have, like what kind of diss he's going to have in response to Pusha T. But anyway, tell me what y'all think. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.